The silence after Leo's car finally sputtered out of the driveway was a physical thing. It swelled, thick and humming, filling his too bright living room until I could hear the faint, rhythmic drip from the kitchen faucet I'd promised to fix 3 visits ago. It was just her and me now. Sarah, my best friend's mother. I'd come over to help Leo move an old armoire, a flimsy pretext we'd all accepted. Sarah was in the kitchen, her back to me, wiping down counters that were already clean. The evening light through the bay window caught the silver threads woven through her dark, messy bun. She wore a faded burgundy sweater, sleeves pushed up to her elbows. "He forgets his phone charger every time," she said, her voice a low, warm register that always made me listen a little harder. "It's a ritual." She turned, leaning against the counter, a faint, wry smile on her lips. But her eyes, a deep, quiet gray, held something else. A tiredness, maybe. A knowledge. "I can, hang around. Finish that faucet," I offered, my own voice feeling too young, too eager in the quiet. "You don't have to." She said it softly, not a dismissal, but a question. She picked up 2 mugs from the drain board. "Coffee's gone cold. I can make more." "Cold is fine." She brought the mugs over, setting mine on the coastless coffee table with a soft clink. When she handed me Leo's abandoned charger, our fingers brushed. It was nothing, a half-second of contact. But she didn't immediately pull away, and I stopped breathing. The air in the room shifted, grew heavier, charged with all the unspoken words from the last year of casual hellos and careful, too long glances. She was the one who moved, sinking into the armchair opposite the sofa, tucking her feet beneath her. She looked at me, really looked, and in that gaze I felt utterly known, not as Leo's friend, but as myself. Flaws, wants, and all. It was exhilarating and terrifying. We sat in that dangerous, expanding silence for what felt like an age, just the drip, drip, drip marking time. Finally, she took a sip of her cold coffee, her eyes never leaving mine over the rim of the mug. "So," she whispered, the word barely a breath in the quiet room. "Now what?" The dripping faucet was a lie. The washer was fine. The problem was deeper in the stem, corroded and stubborn. I'd been kneeling under the sink for 20 minutes, my shoulder wedged against the pipe, feeling like a fool. Sarah knelt on the floor just outside the cabinet, handing me tools when I asked, her presence a quiet hum. She'd been different since that silent coffee, more contained. She'd offered a tight smile when I arrived, then busied herself sorting a pile of mail, giving me space I didn't want. "Pass the adjustable wrench," I asked, my voice echoing slightly in the metal basin. Her hand appeared, the tool balanced on her palm. I took it, my knuckles grazing her skin. Her hand was cold. I noticed a small, faded ink stain near her thumb, a relic from a pen that had burst. A historian's stain, I thought. She'd told me once she used to archive letters for a museum. "You're very quiet today," I said, the words out before I could stop them. "Just thinking." Her voice was close. I could see the frayed hem of her jeans where her knees pressed into the tile. "It's a lot of trouble for a drip." "It's no trouble." A pause. Then, softer, "Everything feels like trouble lately." I stopped turning the wrench. I shuffled out from under the sink to look at her. She was staring at the sorted mail, but not seeing it. The confident posture was gone. Her shoulders were curved in, defensive. There were faint lavender shadows under her eyes the morning light couldn't soften. She looked beautifully, heartbreakingly tired. "Sarah," I said, just her name. She finally met my gaze, and for a second, all her guards were down. I saw it, a deep, lonely exhaustion, and beneath it, a flicker of the same dangerous electricity from the living room. Then she blinked, and it was veiled again. "I'm making you work on your day off," she said, forcing a lighter tone. "The least I can do is make you a proper lunch." She began to stand, a hand bracing on the counter. Instinctively, I rose and offered my arm. She hesitated, her eyes on my extended hand. The air grew still. Then, slowly, she placed her fingers in the crook of my elbow, her touch light as a breath. She didn't let go as she stood, and for 3 seconds, 4, we were there, connected in the bright, mundane light of her kitchen, the silence between us screaming. Lunch was sandwiches, eaten at the kitchen island with a careful foot of polished granite between us. We talked about nothing, a documentary, the unseasonal chill. The charged moment by the sink was folded away, but it lived in the way our sentences sometimes trailed off, in the way I watched her mouth shape words. It was Leo who called, his voice tinny through her phone on the counter. Just checking in. Is Mikey still there fixing the sink? Her eyes flicked to me. He is. Almost done. Her tone was perfectly neutral, a mom update tone. Tell him thanks. And Mom, don't let him charm you into cooking him a feast. He's a stray cat. Feed him once and he'll never leave. She laughed, a bright, performed sound that didn't reach her eyes. Noted. She hung up, placing the phone face down with a deliberate softness. The silence after wasn't comfortable. It was full of his joke, which didn't feel like a joke at all. I should probably. I gestured vaguely toward the sink. Yes, of course. But neither of us moved. The late afternoon sun had slid away, leaving the kitchen in a deep, gray twilight. She was silhouetted against the window, her features blurred. I could hear her breathe, a slow, measured rhythm I found myself matching. Leo worries, she said, finally. It wasn't an apology. It was a confession. I know. I took a step closer. The granite distance shrunk to nothing. I could see the pulse at the base of her throat. Her lips parted, not to speak, but as if the air had grown thin. My hand lifted, almost of its own will, not to touch her face, but to brush a strand of hair that had already fallen perfectly. It hovered there, in the space between the gesture and the reality. A car's headlights swept through the room, washing over us, a neighbor coming home. We both flinched, stepping back as if scalded. The faucet, she whispered, her voice rough. You should finish. The faucet was fixed. The drip was gone, leaving a deeper, more profound quiet in its wake. I packed my tools slowly, every clank of metal too loud. She stood by the back door, arms crossed, watching the night press against the glass. I should go, I said, stating the obvious, clinging to it. She didn't turn. Yes. But I didn't move. The unspoken thing had grown too large. It filled the clean kitchen, pressed against the fixed pipes, smothered the words in my throat. Sarah. She turned then, her face pale in the low light. She looked resigned and older. Don't what? Don't say whatever it is you're going to say. It just makes it real. And then we have to deal with it. Her voice was a thread, worn thin. It already is real. The words hung there, bare and undeniable. She closed her eyes, a long, slow blink. When she opened them, they were shining. I know. A whisper. I feel it. This pull. It's all I think about. And it's shameful. The word hit me like a physical blow. It's not. It is, she cut in, her voice stronger now, frayed with emotion. He's your best friend. I changed his diapers. I have lines on my face you don't. There's no version of this that isn't a mess. She took a shuddering breath, wrapping her arms tighter around herself. So what are we doing, Mike? What is this? Because it can't be anything. And pretending it's just kindness or loneliness, that's starting to feel like a lie. We stared at each other across the room. The truth finally laid between us on the tile floor. It wasn't pretty. It was complicated and painful and shot through with a longing so acute it made my chest ache. Her guard was completely down now, her vulnerability absolute. She finally asked the question, her voice breaking on the last word. Why does the wrong thing have to feel like the only thing that's ever been right? A week passed. A week of deafening normalcy, texts about a football game with Leo, a forwarded article about a band she'd mentioned. All safe, barren ground. Her question hung in the air of every room I entered, unanswered. Then, a simple text from her on a Thursday afternoon. If you're free, there's something I need to show you. Not here. We met at the city archives, where she did part-time research. It was a vault of quiet, smelling of old paper and dust. She was at a desk in a secluded corral, a single lamp pooling light on a spread of documents. She looked up when my shadow fell across the page, and for a second, I saw sheer, unguarded relief. Thanks for coming, she said, her voice hushed by the space. What is all this? She gestured to a faded, leather-bound journal open before her. Letters. From a woman to her sister, 1948. They're beautiful, full of longing for a life she couldn't have. She traced a line of cursive with a fingertip. It's my job to feel their emotions, categorize them. But this one, she shook her head. I can't separate it. I waited. She took a slow breath, not looking at me. His name was Ben. He was my professor. I was 19. It was catastrophic. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was real. It was the first time I felt truly seen. And then it ended, because it had to. I married Leo's father a few years later. It was a good marriage. But it was never that. She finally met my eyes, hers glistening in the lamplight. That feeling, I thought it was a one-time mistake of youth. A chemical fire that burns out. She looked down at the journal, then back at me, her expression one of quiet devastation. You look nothing like him. You sound nothing like him. But when you look at me, it's the same. It's the same feeling. And I am 46 years old, and I am so ashamed that I didn't know it could happen twice. The revelation wasn't about another man. It was about her. A core part of her I'd somehow, impossibly, unlocked. The silence in the archives was absolute, a held breath. She slid a single, yellowed photograph from a protective sleeve. It was of the letter writer, a young woman with serious eyes. She never sent most of these, Sarah whispered. She just needed to say the words out loud to someone, even if it was just paper. Her hand, trembling slightly, reached across the table. Not for the photo, but stopping halfway, an open, vulnerable space between us on the wooden surface. An invitation, not to touch, but to finally, truly, see. I looked at her hand on the wooden table, the faint ink stain, the slight tremble. I looked at the open space between us, an ocean and a millimeter. All the reasons, all the shame, Leo's voice, the decades between us, they were still there. But they were outlines now, shadows around the solid, quiet truth in her eyes. I didn't take her hand. Instead, I pulled the empty chair from the opposite desk and set it down beside hers. The sound was a soft scrape in the holy quiet. I sat, not facing her, but beside her, both of us looking forward at the ancient journal, at the unsent words of a woman long gone. Our shoulders almost touched. I could feel the warmth of her through the thin sleeve of my shirt. She didn't pull away. She let out a breath, long and shuddering, as if she'd been holding it for 20 years. It's a mess, I said, repeating her word from the kitchen, my voice low. Yes. I don't know what happens. Neither do I. We sat in that shared confession. The future was a dark, uncertain corridor. But here, in this pool of lamplight, with the scent of her perfume mixing with the dust of centuries, the present was perfectly, painfully clear. Slowly, as if moving through deep water, I let my hand rest on the table, palm up. A question. A surrender. I didn't watch her face. I stared at the graceful, faded script on the page, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. Seconds stretched. Then, the warmth of her palms settled gently, tentatively, against mine. Her fingers didn't lace through mine. They just rested there, a point of contact. A quiet collapse. We sat like that for a long time, not speaking, just breathing in the same rhythm, our hands a silent pact in the dust-moted light. The rest of the world, with all its complications, was waiting outside the archive's door. But for now, for this fragile, endless moment, it was just this. Her skin against mine, and the terrifying, beautiful silence of something beginning. It's been a year, not of running away, or of grand gestures, but of careful, deliberate choices, of conversations that start with, "Are we sure?" and often end with no answer, just the quiet comfort of asking together. We didn't tell Leo with a speech. We just stopped hiding. He came over one Sunday and found me reading in her chair, her feet in my lap. He saw the way she smiled at me, a soft, unguarded thing she never tried to dim. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked if I was staying for dinner. It was messy, and it's still unfolding, but it's honest. That's the only thing we promised each other in the archives that day. Honesty, however clumsy. Sarah still has the ink stain on her thumb. I still sometimes sound too young to my own ears. The difference is, now she'll take my hand when I say something foolish, and her touch tells me it doesn't matter. I've learned that love isn't about erasing the complications. It's about choosing to build something real in the middle of them. She's in the garden now, pruning roses in the late afternoon sun. From the window, I watch her, this woman who thought her heart had finished its risky, beautiful work. She looks up, catches me looking, and that same electricity from the first silent evening passes between us. It's not dangerous anymore. It's just ours. Sometimes, the most impossible love is the one that teaches you how to be brave. And sometimes, bravery is simply staying and building a life, one quiet, chosen moment at a time. If this story made you feel something, Let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?